In northwestern China lies a village on the edge of the Taklamakan Desert. It is a town with a mysterious past. Over 2,000 years ago, before the coming of Marco Polo, experts believe that Roman soldiers fought their way across these deserts from Rome into China, never to return. But who were these Romans? And did they really exist? In 1957, Professor Homer Dubbs of Oxford University believed that he had discovered what he called a Roman city in China. It was called Lijian, the ancient Chinese name for Rome. Over the years, the search for this lost Roman city has uncovered few answers, but now historians believe they are closer to the truth. Through detailed historical analysis, we find out if Lijian really existed, and whether the inhabitants of a remote Chinese village are indeed descendants of the Roman Empire. In the remote plains of northwestern China lies the province of Gansu, home to over 20 million Chinese and one unusual village. On the surface, the area of Zhelaichai appears like any other rural settlement. Among its traditional mud brick homes, however, one particular structure stands out. A Roman pavilion with the Chinese characters Li Jian inscribed on it. The pavilion was built recently to represent what locals believe is a unique part of their history, when Roman soldiers once inhabited the area. Not far away, in the nearby town of Yongchang, visitors are greeted by another strange sight, the figure of a Chinese minister flanked by two Roman statues. But something more intriguing lies in the town's hotel. Displayed in its lobby, a gallery of the town's residents who believe they have Caucasian features. They call themselves sons of the ancient Roman army. Each year, its residents organize a parade to celebrate what they regard as their ancient heritage. Although history shows that the Roman army never made it to China, these villagers are somehow convinced that they did. Song Guorong is a man in search of his past. He has been researching the area's history for many years. Taller than the average Chinese, and with auburn-colored hair, Song wants to know if his ancestors really came from Rome.
老人也对这事情有所传说，就说是黄毛樊子历史上来的那些车。
Song's best friend is Luo Yin, who also believes he is of Roman descent. Although he has never been there, Luo Yin has been fascinated with Rome ever since he was a boy. He's convinced he bears more than a passing resemblance to an Italian or Roman.
一方面就是日本到了尤其是公共场合或者舞厅啊、卡拉 OK 啊，和他与众不同吧。这个鼻子、眼睛啊，这个头发他开的多是吧？谁跟我聊天，谁跟我玩。我跟你说，我是哪个民族的？我就说孩子的，我说不相信啊，不可能的那是。
Both Song and Luo Yin want to find out where their forefathers came from. They believe that the answers to their heritage lie in the village of Zhelaichai. Zhelaichai was recently renamed Lijian, the Chinese word for Rome. But what was the connection between the two? The mystery had its beginnings in the 1950s, here in the halls of Oxford University. Professor Homer H. Dubbs was the head of Oxford's Chinese studies. His life's work involved translating the Han Dynasty's ancient historical records. While deciphering the bamboo scrolls, Dubbs came across a reference to a Chinese county named Lijian. Dubbs found it unusual because Lijian was also the ancient Chinese name for Rome. Why did an obscure Chinese town share the same name as the Roman Empire? In 1957, after years of research, Dubbs presented his findings to the China Society.
Tonight, I will share with you all evidence of a Roman city in China.
Roman relics like this were found in China in 166 AD and represented the first contact between the two empires. But Dubbs claimed that Lijian had existed in the 1st century BC, over 200 years earlier. If he was right, it meant that the Romans had been in China before anyone had imagined. Dubbs's writings were so controversial that they went largely ignored. But 30 years later, one man re-examined the Roman story. Writer-historian David Harris discovered Dubbs's book at the University of Adelaide and became intrigued by the theory.
It seems unbelievable, a mystery that I could never have imagined, a city called Rome in China. And the combination of those two powerful images, the Roman Empire and the great Chinese Empire together, captivated my mind.
In 1988, David packed his bags for China to search for the lost Roman city of Lijian. His research led to a book, but the Roman puzzle remained unsolved. Now, on his 4th trip to China, David is returning to find some new answers. His destination? Zhilai, the likely location for Lijian, the lost city of Rome. David Harris's search in China brings him to the office of Song Guorong, the head of the Lijian Research Society.
Song Guorong, 你好, so pleased to meet you. Yes.
Determined to uncover the area's strange history, Song shows David his research on the lost Roman city of Lijian.
以前它的这个建县实际上在历史上存在了600年，到了这个清末、民国初年，这个名词只是在学者的口中存在，在这个本地老百姓中，不过这个地名继续存在。
Experts believe that Lijian was originally the Chinese name for Alexandria, once part of the Roman Empire. Some historians eventually used it to refer to Rome itself. None of the ancient Chinese historians could explain, however, why there was a town in China that also went by the same name. Only Professor Homer Dubbs had a possible answer. He believed that Lijian had once been occupied by Roman legionaries. Legionaries that had come from Turkey, 4,000 miles away. But how had this strange journey begun? The year was 53 BC. The Parthian kingdom held sway between China and Rome and controlled the area of trade between the two civilizations. To expand their empire eastwards, the Romans declared war against the Parthians. The legions marched to Kerai, a desert in Turkey, to meet their fate.
Surrounded by the Parthian cavalry, the Roman legion was helpless. fired upon by arrows from a great distance, beyond the distance they could charge the enemy, they were mown down, the arrows piercing their shields, nailing their arms to the shields, nailing their feet to the ground.
The Romans linked their shields into their famous testudo formation, but they were no match for the Parthians' heavily armoured horsemen. When the Battle of Carrhae was over, the Romans had suffered their worst military defeat. Over 20,000 soldiers were killed, while another 10,000 were taken back into Central Asia as Parthian prisoners of war, never to see Rome again.
The prisoners were dragged far to the east, beyond the world that they knew existed, and there many were put in Merv, in what's now northern Afghanistan, there to rot away in a Parthian outpost doing sentry duty. Others disappeared altogether, no trace of them.
Homer Dubs believed that some of the Romans would end their days not as prisoners in Merv, but in a remote settlement in China called Li Jian. But could they have survived such a journey? To search for the Roman soldiers, David Harris decided to retrace their steps into China. He travelled eastwards on the Silk Road towards Tashkent. There, David met archaeologist Dr. Edward Ritavelatsa, who showed David what he'd found in a cave in northern Afghanistan. It was a stone carving bearing the name Girex, a Roman legionary who had served in the 15th Legion of Apollinaris. While it didn't prove that Romans had made it into China, David believed it provided evidence that some of them had travelled thousands of miles from Rome into Central Asia.
Now, this is the kind of thing we're looking for. It's a Roman coin of about 53 BC. There are many Roman coins and artifacts found to the east, and this is the kind of evidence we need of movement into China. And I carry this little coin with me into China as a talisman for my search.
Homer Dubs believed he knew how the Romans had entered China. He had discovered their fate, he said, in the war diaries of a Chinese colonel named Chen Tang. Although they disappeared from Western history, Dubs had reason to believe that the Romans had encountered Chinese soldiers in Central Asia. The Chinese were at war with the Xiongnu, a nomadic tribe that occupied much of Central Asia. Chen Tang and his army had made their way into the area to attack a Xiongnu fortress. Led by the warlord Che Tie, the Xiongnu threatened the Chinese Empire's access to the Silk Road and had to be stopped before it was too late. The Chinese fired their crossbows against the Xiongnu and set fire to their fortress, which was surrounded by double palisades of wood. Chen Tang and his men stormed the palace and defeated the Xiongnu. But the real story was just beginning. In reporting his victory to the Chinese emperor, Chen Tang described a strange fish-scale formation that he'd seen in the battle. The fish-scale formation was a maneuver never before described in Chinese history. What could this strange maneuver have been, and where did it come from? In researching the tactics of ancient armies, Homer Dubs found only one thing that seemed to fit. The Roman legion used a maneuver called the testudo, which closely matched the description of a fish-scale formation.
The testudo, I think, is one of the defining features of the Roman army. It's a formation of soldiers with their shields held around the sides and above them to protect themselves. It's often used in siege warfare when soldiers are trying to get up to the walls of a city, and they use this defensive formation to protect themselves from any missiles being thrown down at them.
Who else but Romans would link their shields in fish scale formation? Who else but the Romans had what was known as the tortoise, the testudo?
Homer Dubs also noted that the mysterious soldiers had built double palisades of wood around their fortress, another tactic of the Roman army. The battle tactics described seemed uncharacteristic of the Xiongnu, who were nomadic warriors that usually fought on horseback. Dubs concluded that the soldiers using these methods had to be Roman in origin. Like other ancient armies, the Xiongnu fought their battles using mercenary and captive troops. Among them, Dubs believed, were some of the Roman soldiers who had originally been captured by the Parthians.
Was it possible that some of the soldiers who were stationed at Merv escaped for a better life, becoming mercenary soldiers, to fight with the Xiongnu, because to return home was impossible across all that length of the Parthian Empire, and to return home also meant that they were slaves because they'd forfeited their Roman citizenship in surrendering and becoming mercenary soldiers.
After the Chinese defeated the Xiongnu, Chen Tang took 145 prisoners from Central Asia back into China to serve as border guards. Dubs believed that some Romans among them would later form a settlement called Lijian, a forgotten city somewhere in northwest China. In 1988, during his first trip to China, David met with Guan Yichuan, a professor who believed he knew the location of Lijian. Using Mongolian and Tibetan histories, Guan showed David several possible locations for the lost city, but died before David could learn more. David would now have to find Lijian on his own. David meets with Guan's son to see if he can uncover more information from his father's files. Guan Heng tells David that his father's notes are too cryptic for experts to decipher.
What is the distance between all these places?
But the late professor did leave David with one strong possibility. He believed Lijian was in an area called Zhilai. In the early 90s, the area of Zhilai was declared off-limits for security reasons. But now, years later, with the restrictions lifted, David is able to enter the area for the first time. En route, David enters the county of Yongchang. Lying along the Silk Road, Yongchang was a gateway for traders on their way to the Chinese capital. The area was also known historically as the He Corridor. Over 2,000 years ago, envoys from countries like Persia and Parthia would exchange gifts with the Chinese Empire in return for silk. Through these interactions, China eventually learned more about the world beyond its borders. Could Roman legionaries have crossed these same frontiers into China towards their final destination? At Zhilai, David meets Luo Yin, who's offered to be his guide.
Hello.
Luo Yin.
Luo Yin has also been searching around the village for clues to the lost Roman city, and shows David the remains of the town's old walls.
Here now. This is the one I've heard of, yeah. This is the one I want to see.
A stone carving reveals that the village was recently renamed Lijian, after the Roman garrison city that locals believed existed here.
这个它就是像基督墙在现在是保存的比较少，在之前有十字那个700米长，有10字那个非常高。那历史的关系，它就说就是原先那些人的遗址。
David learns that the villagers have taken parts of the garrison's old walls to build their own homes, making it difficult to establish the parameters of the old town. Lo Yin tells David, however, about another fortress nearby.
Professor Homer Dubbs at Oxford University believed that Lixien was a garrison city and that the Roman captives were put here to fight against the Xiongnu, who were the nomads, the enemy of China. And over there is what we believe may have been one of the fortresses of the Lixien people.
Song Guorong and members of the Liqian Society take David to have a closer look at the fortress.
这是古代的诸国军的营盘，从这个汉代到这个汉唐元明清这个地方都是历代这个皇家驻军的营盘。
Well, if this was a fortress, tell us its story. Who was here? What happened here? What was this place used for?
在西汉的时候，这个就
Song explains that the fortress was used by the Chinese over 2,000 years ago to defend against invaders from Mongolia and Tibet. Some believe that the Chinese had kept foreign prisoners here to guard the area. Most of the counties in the area, like Yongchang, were named after their captive peoples. So perhaps Liqian, which represented the ancient name for Rome, was also named after its prisoner population. Could Roman mercenaries captured by the Chinese have formed their own garrison city here as a signature of their identity? This was what David wanted to find out. Relics had been unearthed around the site of Jilai Jai, but nothing Roman had been found. The museum, however, had found one interesting item, a fragment of a soldier's helmet inscribed with Chinese characters.
这两个字很明显，赵哀就是当时的这个古罗马军队啊，他到这个河西这边来以后，是大概在灭楚去了。
Experts believe that this helmet belonged to a captive soldier from Liqian. The words Jiao An mean one of the surrendered, leaving David to wonder if a Roman soldier might have worn a helmet like this.
One of the problems of Lixien is evidence. There are ancient documents which have tenuous suggestions, and there are ancient maps. There are a few artifacts dug up around here, some spears and some pottery, but nothing definitive. So one of the difficulties of Lixien, and one of its intriguing aspects, is that the evidence is not yet conclusive.
Experts believe that no Roman military relics would have survived for one simple reason. There were probably none.
I'm absolutely convinced that when these Roman soldiers were caught, they would be disarmed. Absolutely. That's just common sense. They were lucky enough to survive with their lives. If they were then entrusted with military duties somewhere else, they would be re-equipped by their new employers. I think the idea that if these Romans hypothetically emerged on the Chinese frontier, the idea that they're still going to look like Romans, wearing Roman helmets and carrying Roman shields and javelins and pilum and all the rest of it, I think that is complete nonsense. That simply cannot have happened.
The villagers believe that the missing clues to their past lie beneath the surface of Jilai Jai. With ancient graves scattered all around the landscape, the Chinese villagers in the area still pay yearly tributes to their ancestors. But Lo Yin and Song wonder if these tombs also contain remains of their possible Roman ancestors. While building a gas pipeline in Yongchang in 2003, a construction company came across an unexpected find. 99 tombs from the Han Dynasty were uncovered. This discovery was the first of its kind in the area. Within the tombs, researchers found skeletons that were 2,000 years old. They hoped that the find would provide new clues in their search for Romans. But all the remains were eventually moved to the State Institute. making further analysis difficult. At the Yongchang County Museum, however, one skeleton was left behind, leaving the villagers curious about its identity.
这个人体骨架是个耐人体，它的高度是在经过量以后到1.8米左右的。从骨骼的外形上，像这个眉弓骨的高隆起，以及颧骨这个，也可以说一种其他民族的特征也很明显。这里有一块黑色的，这个很明显可能是一种动机击伤而死，也可能是用棒啊、什么锤啊之类的石头啊。
Could forensic analysis finally unlock the secrets of Li Jian? Lacking resources, the State Institute made no immediate plans to examine the skeletons. But this hasn't stopped the villagers from speculation. Song Guorong and Ruo Yin are especially intrigued by the find. The bones, they say, are larger than those of a Chinese. Were they Roman? Or were they simply Chinese? What did the people of Li Jian, the lost city of China, really look like? The villagers had their own theories.
我们的地方旧址上有记载，黄毛部落，他就是指的是这个李前人，他是毛色是黄褐色，他是指的这个，
身材很高大，黄头发，这个身上体上也是那个，这个腿上也都是黄毛。
Although there wasn't any real proof of their European heritage, stories of Roman ancestry soon became village folklore.
10来岁的时候啊，人就常跟俺说是有个李前人是罗马人，外头打了仗，打了败仗，就知道这些。我们具体这个有些这个实质情况我们也是不了解。这就是呢，我们这地方这个像人的这个。 肤色啊，头发，像这个，外国的这个黄头发、外裔这的这号人啊比较多。
In the year 2000, the villagers of Chilai found themselves at the center of a media spotlight. They gathered for a provincial parade, dressed as Romans.
古代李前人的一种舞蹈，叫毽子舞，大毽子，毽子。
让我们用热烈的掌声欢迎永昌县人民政府组织表演的立千古韵榆林镇。
The fish scale formation was a significant aspect of the Roman legend. The villagers of Li Jian believed their founding fathers, the Roman legionaries, had once used the formation and built a garrison in their hometown. The fish scale represented a testudo, a military tactic that only the Roman army used. Homer Dubs believed that the Romans had been found fighting with the testudo in Central Asia before being taken to China.
This unique formation as used.
But the theory was controversial. The battle had taken place so far away from Rome that it seemed improbable that the Romans could have been there.
I think it is quite possible that the testudo formation was used in that area at that time. However, the next question is who was using it? Could it have been people of Roman origin? There is, to me, no inherent reason why this could not be. Captive peoples were moved around huge distances, but retained their identity. We know from the Mongol period that entire military groups were transferred from Russia, from the Caucasus, and we find them cropping up in the most remarkable places.
Other experts have been less convinced about the Roman fish scale theory. In the halls of Oxford University, some scholars have even dismissed Homer Dubbs's claims as being a fantasy.
步兵百余人，甲门鱼鳞沉. This is the line where it says 100 or so foot soldiers on either side of the gate formed up in a fish scale style.
Professor Glenn Dudbridge has spent several years checking the accuracy of Homer Dubbs's interpretation. He thinks that Dubbs may have jumped to conclusions.
We need to understand those words, fish scale, in another way. What I needed to do was to look at all those other places in Chinese literature where the phrase fish scale was used. It was used to describe things, or sometimes human bodies, closely packed together. So it seemed to me that when this phrase is used to describe soldiers, it's describing a closely formed rank of men in close formation, like the scales of a fish.
Homer Dubbs also noted that the mysterious soldiers had used double palisades of wood to defend their fortress, another Roman tactic. But even this was inconclusive. Still, a visual reference of the fish scale formation did exist. The Colonel Chen Tang depicted the battle scene on a terracotta plate, but the plate was lost over time. During his attempts to search for it, David was told by museums that it would probably never be found. If the fish scale theory proved inconclusive, was it possible that the Li Jian people might not have been from Rome, but from somewhere else? Li Jian sat on the edge of the Silk Road, connecting China to various other civilizations in the West. Traders from Central Asia and beyond would have entered the imperial kingdom and could easily have settled here.
And so it could well have been that the Lixian people were not descendants of Roman soldiers, but descendants of travellers such as merchants who commonly walked up and down the Silk Road so close to the village of Zerleitzai.
我们从小时候这个地方，就像你们现在在村里面也看到，因为只有这个日这种相貌的人比较多。我们村子里面呀，或者是我们从小上学的时候啊，我们同学这种也有，因为他就谁也觉得相当正常。
The Chinese colonel Chen Tang reported taking 145 prisoners from a Xiongnu fortress back to China. Among them, some believed, were the Roman legionaries who founded Li Jian. But there were probably Xiongnu and other tribal prisoners among them as well. The Xiongnu were thought to be of Turco-Mongol origin and occupied the area around Li Jian. Could they also have been the possible ancestors of the Li Jian people? David searches for any physical evidence that might reveal what the Xiongnu people looked like.
一套舞蹈俑呢，出自于我们河西走廊，它是呢2200年西汉时候，它呢有可能是属于这个匈奴。你看它的这个人物造型，不是像我们汉族文化。
Physical descriptions of the Xiongnu don't match what David is looking for. Chinese historians describe them as short, stocky, and pancake-faced, not European. Still, evidence of Western-looking soldiers has been found in China's northwestern states, suggesting that Indo-European tribes had entered China at some point in its history. The question remained, however, could Roman soldiers have traveled all the way from the Battle of Carrhae in Turkey to Li Jian? The mystery intrigued other experts in China, where one of the biggest clues to the Lijian puzzle was to emerge. In Gansu's Archaeology Institute, Professor Zhang Defang took a deeper look into the city's origins. Over the years, the Institute has unearthed thousands of bamboo scrolls from archaeological digs. Some of these revealed new information about the ancient city of Lijian.
从这14支简中呢，我们可以看到当时的黎前呢，这个远远跟罗马战俘是有关的。从这个纪年间来看呢，黎前就已经存在，比罗马和安息的战争要早了7年，比成汤消灭郅支单于要早了24年。所以这是当时的第一手记录，应该说是铁的证据。
What was known was that Lijian had once been a place that reared horses. One translation of Lijian was also Black Horse City. If Lijian had existed before any Romans went there, why did experts believe there was a Roman connection? Back at Oxford, Glenn Dudbridge explains how the name of Lijian might have created problems for experts.
The name Lijian, as we meet it in Chinese texts, comes up represented by different Chinese characters, and what this tells us, together with the great variety and different mixture of ways of writing, that they are representing sounds, not meanings.
Although they were two entirely different words, Lijian County and Lijian, the ancient name for Rome, sounded exactly the same. This, Dudbridge believed, may have confused the ancient scholars. The last known record of Lijian was dated in the 7th century AD, when the Tibetans invaded the area. After that, the city vanished forever. For David and Lo Yin, the real question remains, who are the people of Lijian? If they were not Romans, who were they? And what could explain their physical features? There was only one way to find out. David and Lo Yin head out to Beijing to the Chinese Academy of Sciences. In the late 90s, scientists performed a DNA test on people in the Lijian area to find out if there was any truth to the Roman legend. The results proved that there were European markers present in their genes, but not enough to ascertain if the people were from Rome. Lo Yin has his sample taken for a future test that aims to construct a more definitive DNA map.
Yes.
But David wonders if Lo Yin's DNA will be able to provide the answers they need.
One of the problems of the origin of Lixian people is migration. Floods of humanity poured through Gansu, the Hershey Corridor in those ancient times. Mongolians, Chinese, Caucasians, all mixing. There were mass deportations, traders, priests, merchants. It's almost impossible to pin down the exact origin of the Lixian people in this sea of humanity.
The people in the Lijian area could have easily been Persian or Roman or Central Asian. No one could say for sure. Even the Roman soldiers themselves consisted of people from different ethnic backgrounds.
It would be very hard to define someone genetically as being Roman, because the Roman army would have contained soldiers from all over Italy, from France, from a number of different places. But the legionaries would probably all regard themselves as being Roman.
With the vast number of cultures that lived between China and Rome, the identity of the Lijian people would have to remain an open question for now, until a larger DNA picture emerged. For David and Lo Yin, the search is still far from over as they head to Beijing's Institute of Archaeology. Wang Minghui has been researching the existence of European and nomadic people along China's northwestern borders. He analyzes ancient skulls to find out what different ethnic groups in China might have looked like and where they came from.
刚就说请你看一下呢，这就是我们甘肃云昌县的，就是我的家乡出现的日历人。那么你能分析一下这种人主要是来自什么地方？
这个它具有是典型的欧罗巴人种成分，肯定是没有问题的，但是它也是一种这个混血形成的这种结果。
Wang then takes a closer look at Luo Yin's features.
它的体质特征呢，具有明显的欧罗巴人种的体质因素，同时也含有一些汉族人的体质特征的因素。这个所谓这个鼻根的位置呢，汉族人是低的，欧罗巴人种是高一点的，而且它这个眼窝呢，相对来说比汉族人要深，而且它的眼球呢，一般汉族人是黑色的，它这偏黄。这个头发也可以看出来，头发一般汉人是相对来说是直发较多，它这相对来说有一些曲度。
Finally, Wang gives Luo Yin his expert opinion.
像你这样，我想可能就是从伊朗啊、中亚地区，中亚地区可能进入的就是这种人种成分。
For Luo Yin, the news that he doesn't appear European or Roman doesn't dampen his spirits.
也没有什么惊讶，也没有什么失望，因为一个人种有的时候它就是这种大融合。我们说不上，在我上一代，或者跟上一代，或者就爷爷的爷爷，他上这种特征比较明显一点。他到了我这一代，他比较弱化。也说嘛，到了我下一代或者下一代，他有这种反作性，他再返回过来。
A few weeks later, Luo Yin learns that his DNA test reveals that he is primarily Asian. Roman tourism is alive and well in Yongchang today. Already the villagers have turned their mysterious Roman heritage into an international attraction.
那些是到了法国回去了，云昌这个行。
来过法国，他们把那景色给我看上了，我们8到5天了。
也特别骄傲，特别棒。拿着车让这父母亲看到，父母亲非常高兴。
Away from Yongchang's old district, Luo Yin takes David to the newly built Rome Street.
罗马旅游文化节作用黄金地段，享受健康人生，银行贷款无成，8年按揭贷款。
In a few years, the town hopes to transform itself into a modern replica of a Roman city.
导游怎么跟你们介绍这边的？这里他说这个是罗马的京都，他的后人呢在这里定居的，所以他的面很像地中海的人的面相。那来这边就是听到这个故事，你觉得怎么样？就是不相信。
The question remains, did Roman legionaries somehow establish a city in China? Or could all of this have been based on the romantic imaginings of one professor? Back in Jilaijai, the men are preparing themselves for an important ritual. Each year they will dress up as Roman legionaries to relive what they believe is their Roman past. For some, it's a proud reminder of their heritage, but for others, it takes a little more to get into the mood. Regardless of what the critics and experts have said, Song, Luo Yin and their fellow villagers remain deeply inspired by the Roman legend.
它代表了这段历史的归宿，
这是历史的见证。当我穿上罗马服装的时候，我感觉到心里面就是感觉到非常骄傲和非常自豪，因为这是这种古罗马文明，我感觉我们就是古罗马文明的这种自称和延续。
After more than 17 years of searching for the lost city of Lijian, David's quest is still unfinished.
I have mixed feelings about what's found. Years ago, I set out to see if there was a Rome in China. I think that this journey has shown that Zerlaitsai is unlikely to be the place of Romans, and that the dating on the bamboo strips of 60 BC shows that Roman soldiers probably had nothing to do with the formation of Lijian. There's still a lot of work to do, still much to be uncovered.
The imperial records state that the Roman Empire would officially make contact with China only in 166 AD, opening trade between the two countries. Marco Polo himself would visit and tell the world about China centuries later. For David, Song and Loyin, the real questions remain unresolved, but they hope that more answers will emerge with time.
无论历史上我们的祖先是属于一种什么民族也好，什么部落也好，或者是从西方来的也好，或者是他就是东方来的也好，最终形成我们中华民族。这个民族，我觉得这是我们中华民族的一种骄傲。
No one really knows if the Roman army ever made it to China, or who the mysterious people of Lijian might have been. But for now, Lijian remains a lost history, buried in the sands of northwest China.